Hey guys, welcome into the best damn pod in the land. Glad to be back. I'm here joined with Juck from Juck on Bucks. Juck, what's up, buddy? How are you?
Fantastic, buddy. Look, I got my new shirt in, Chad.
Yes,
We got our
yes.
first piece of national championship memorabilia has arrived at the house. I'm wearing it proud. I'm really excited.
I love it, man. I love it. Well, thanks for joining me, man. I know like we were trying to work something out, so appreciate you hopping on. So I guess before we get like way into the show, tell everybody where they can find you. We have so much crossover, and I don't think people realize how small the pod world is and how many people know each other. But if they don't know and haven't found out, like by your 11,000 billion subscribers, where can they find you, man?
So you can find me over at Juck on Bucks on YouTube. Anywhere you find podcast, I also am simulcast on Menace to Sports. If you watch anything over there, you can find me over there as well. The times are pretty sporadic. I'm all over the place, but usually post about 6 times a week.
Yeah, I get it, man. So lately, and everybody knows, like Dan and I've been trying to do stuff. I've been trying to do stuff with you. Terry was supposed to be on last week and he got sick and my life has completely changed. So I got a not so great health report a while back. So I've been going to the gym every day on my lunch for an hour and I'm doing carnivore and, I've lost almost 20 pounds and I'm doing all these things just to like get my health back on track. Cause COVID, I feel like ruined everybody a little bit for the like being at home, but beyond that, man, let's talk football. So we are the national champions. We are, and I'm enjoying it, man. I'm reveling in it. I'm loving it. I've been so excited that all this other noise and all this other crap that's going on with like the coaches leaving and all these different things, and even the stuff floating around before about Carnell Tate, maybe jumping in the transfer portal, which you did a whole thing on, and how much like that was such a crappy move by the reporter. But we got to talk about it. So Chip walks for $6 million. I kind of want to start there. I mean, I expected it. I don't know. What about you?
We knew that obviously he's better suited for the NFL. We knew that he wanted to go to the NFL before he came to Ohio State, didn't get that job with the Seahawks. My thinking was either Ryan Day had the 2-year agreement with him that Urban used to have with people,
Yep.
or Ryan Day, as his good buddy, would want him to go where he wants to go. They got done, they got it done together. And as it turns out, we heard Ryan Day on Joel Klatt. That looked like a guy who was happy for his buddy. So, yeah, I mean, it's all good, man.
Yeah.
It's all good.
Well, let me ask you. So guys, so we did not pre-talk about this, so I don't actually know what Juck's answer is going to be. Where are you? And if you've addressed this, I might have missed it because I try to listen to your stuff every day when you put it out. But on the co-OC promote Brian Hartline, let's not lose him, best wide receiver coach in the in college football, like kind of where I'm okay with a co-OC kind of idea, because either you keep Hartline and you let him continue to grow and use what he's learned, or he goes and does it somewhere else and then you screw your whole room up, the wide receiver room. So that's kind of where my thinking. But what about you?
So, I mean, a couple different issues. Like number one, I think that there's only one assistant coach on this team, and really just a couple in college football that I think are so important that you might do something you otherwise wouldn't do to keep them. And I think Brian Hartline's that guy.
Mm-hmm.
And it just kind of makes me feel like when we look at Ryan Day going 5 for 5 in his hires last year, I've got a whole lot of trust in his judgment now of knowing what he wants and knowing what's best for his program. And I feel like if he thinks that Brian's ready to do it, then I'm going to feel pretty comfortable about it at this point. But we look back at 2022 when he made him the offensive coordinator. A lot of people saying like, this will be a disaster of a hire. We already tried this. Can I propose that perhaps the guy at the head who told us last year, point blank, how hard it was for him to give up play calling to Chip Kelly, how difficult it was, how much he loves it. It's his baby. Maybe he was the one who wasn't ready in 2022.
Yeah.
Maybe it was a combination of both. I don't think we can just point blank say that it was a disaster and Brian Hartline was the one that failed or wasn't ready. I don't know that we can say that confidently, right? In addition, when we look at that wide receiver room, And I am not someone, and when people, even when they were talking about, people talking about firing Ryan Day, and other people's counter argument was, well, you're going to lose the whole roster. Like, I am not someone who is of the opinion that you let coaches hold you hostage like that. Like, we don't want to lose these players, so we're going to keep this coach we otherwise would have gotten rid of. But there's just one guy in college football that I would do that for, and that's Jeremiah Smith.
Yeah.
I wouldn't even do it for Caleb Downs. But if it's going to keep Brian Hartline here, and you need to do it to keep him here, if that's the scenario. I mean, I think he would have gotten the West Virginia job if Rich Rod wasn't out there, like the guy who literally took their program to new heights. I think he'd have got that job. But if it's going to keep Brian Hartline here, keep him happy. And what's the worst case scenario? Ryan Day can step in when he needs to and help him a little more. Not ideal. He doesn't want to do that, I don't think. But if it's going to keep him here, keep him happy, keep JJ here. And let's not forget, now he can also help recruit the rest of the offense and not just the wide receiver room. Yeah, I'm good with it, man. If Ryan Day says he's good with it, I'm good with it. But for all those other reasons, I'm also good with it.
Well, I had this thought. And so everybody's, talking Jason Candle or the guy from Oregon and some of these other things. Somebody I thought that might be in a mentorship role and allow Brian to grow and maybe even help with as a run game coordinator. This is out of the blue just because. So I'm a Akron homer, that. Like I'm just one of those people. But what about Joe Moorhead?
I love it.
What about Joe Moorhead? Why not? He's at Akron, and for as much as I love my Zips, their football team since Charlie Frye has not been great. There might have been a year in there after I left, but the Frye for Heisman, that was when I was in school then. So that was a really fun time for Akron U. Yeah. However, he's just somebody I've kind of had in the back of my mind since Chip left. I was like, man, I wonder. And I don't know if there's even a connection there, but you, Chris, me, we're all like, that Akron, those Akronites, I guess, if you want to call us that. So it was just, I think that would be a great fit. I do, but that's just me.
Yeah, no, I brought him up the other day too.
Oh, did you? I missed it. Yeah, darn it, man. Why you take my ideas?
He's had, 3 not so great years at Akron U. And
that's a tough place to win, man. It just is.
It's impossible. And, a whole nother topic. I think it shouldn't be so hard, but it is. And he did really good at Penn State. He did really good under Cristobal at Oregon. Obviously, he came in and beat us. And I think that it would be kind of a slam dunk, to be honest. Like, I would like it a lot. Obviously, an older guy, really heavy on the RPO stuff, but, I like it. I think it would be a really good one. If they hired him, I would feel very comfortable with it myself. I would also really love Will Stein would be my number one choice.
Okay. All right. I'm not that different on the thoughts than you are. It just, I kept circling back to, I was not a huge fan of Kevin Wilson's run schemes.
Listen,
I just didn't like them. And especially and you and me, and I think Dan too, like we used to just complain all the time about stretch to the boundary. And that's all I can think of whenever I think of Kevin Wilson is stretch to the boundary. So it's permanently ingrained in my head.
So, Chad,
go ahead.
Before we move on, as far as you bringing up Kevin Wilson to me, and I know a lot of people really want this, Kevin Wilson to me feels like you're settling. You're settling for comfortable. You're settling for comfort. And I wouldn't hate it, but it certainly wouldn't get me excited. But you're not in the position where you have to settle for anything.
No.
You never are at Ohio State. You certainly are not right now with Ryan Day's track record. Coaches enjoy working with him. He lets them coach. And you're coming off a national championship. You got the highest paid assistant coaching pool in the country. You don't have to settle for anything. And Kevin Wilson kind of feels like settling. Another couple candidates that have been floated that I hate the sound of, Tommy Reese.
No, please no. Please, God, no.
Ken Dorsey, no thank you. I don't know what it is about some of these retread guys that people always throw out there. Like, we're supposed to get excited about that. Yeah, no thanks.
Yeah, the Kevin Wilson thing, I'm gonna use an analogy. It's like you're a teenager and you broke up with your girlfriend that you've been going out with for 8 months, and you guys took the summer off, and you go back to school and you see each other and you're like, oh yeah, that feels familiar and comfortable. Maybe we should try it again. There's a reason you broke up. We'll just leave it at that. I'm not going to go any further, but running it back usually never works. I guess I'll just leave it at that. But so the one I if you wanted me to be honest, the one I was most bummed about was Allen Clark. I love Allen Clark. I think that he did so much behind the scenes and probably didn't get the pub he deserved. I'm happy for him that he gets to coach linebackers. I don't love that he went to Texas, but that's that one, along with Knowles leaving, so I'm going to pair them together, kind of opens up some interesting doors. And I know that if people listen to your show, I know you've talked about this, but if you could give us a recap of kind of what you're thinking, I can kind of share what I'm thinking, what I would love. Like, we'll just say that.
I am, the Randy Bates stuff has been floated to replace Jim Knowles, which, I wouldn't be upset with at all. I really like the Pitt defense. I love the fact that he's an Ohio guy. I love the fact that 3 of the top 5 recruits he's ever had are from the Cincinnati area, which is the toughest place in Ohio for us to keep guys home. Guy's a Buckeye.
Yeah.
And his defense is aggressive and they're nasty, and they led the ACC in rushing 4 years in a row, rushing defense. They give up quite a bit of yards sometimes because they're aggressive. And, regardless, however the guy, Ryan Day, wants him to run the defense is how he's going to run the defense. But he's very competent. He reminds me actually a lot of Knowles. Watched him in a couple of interviews. Very similar personality, the wizard behind the curtain type of deal. But I like the idea, and you can weigh this logic both ways. You're starting with a group of young guys and new guys, so maybe it's a good time to start over with a new defensive coordinator, new defense, or because these are younger guys who are familiar with this system, let's keep it the same and promote Matt G. Now, Matt G, some people would say, well, you just said you don't want Ohio State to settle. That doesn't make sense. And here's where I differentiate this. Matt G, had he stayed at Indiana, we listened to what Ryan Day said about him, and I've thought this about him all along. I said it at the beginning of the season. I think there's something about this dude. I think he is going to be a big-time defensive coordinator at some point in his career. Had he stayed at Indiana, I think we'd be looking at a situation this offseason like we just saw with Minnesota's defensive coordinator who got hired by Miami. I think we'd see Matt G getting that big call up to that next job. He may have been in the running for this job had he stayed at Indiana as the DC. You got him on staff. You get to keep the defense the same. If you want to put Walt up there with them and make them co's, if that is what you need to do to keep Walt happy, who's another assistant coach right behind Hartline that I would say is extremely valuable, I'm good with it. So from that standpoint, I'd be very happy if they promoted internally like that. And a couple of the other candidates out there, not too juiced about them, but Bates or the internal promotion, I really like for the defense.
I tend to agree with you about most of that. I think the Bates thing for me, the struggle I have is if you rewind the clock to 2021, 2022, the big play haunted us. And we said we weren't going to do the big play. Like even in 2023, I think Ryan Day told Jim Knowles, no big plays, play out, keep everything in front of you. And we weren't super aggressive on defense because of that. Basically the whole goal was to not give up the big play. So and I do believe that some of that, CJ, he was so talented. We could almost outscore everybody, almost like the Georgia game. We found out we couldn't, poor Noah Ruggles, but I am on the Matty G train. And I say that because this is the time to hire Jason Taylor. Now is the time to use that spot and hire Jason Taylor or whoever your person is that's going to be LJ's replacement. LJ's got 1 year left on his contract. I think he stays through the rest of this year. I think this is it. But I think they need to be clear with commitments and recruits and say, hey, this is the next guy. LJ is going to be here this year, and they need to come out and rip the Band-Aid off personally. Now, if LJ wants to stay and he wants to do it, sign another 2-year deal, okay, but I still think you got to have that next guy. And I kind of thought Allen Clark might be that next guy because he'd done so much with the NFL and everything. But I know they tried to get Jason Taylor a couple of years ago, and I don't know. I like the idea of a Guerreri keeping it the same and then bringing in an assistant coach on the defensive line that's going to backfill behind LJ. It's kind of where I'm at with it. I struggle with the Bates thing because of the big plays, man.
Yeah, well, I mean, just like Knowles, when Ryan Day told him to tighten up and be less aggressive, it would be the same with Bates as well. If he's got an issue with that. But when you talk about Jason Taylor, now you're proposing they bring him in now. If you can sell that to him, and you can sell that to Larry, I would love it. I would love it, no doubt. If you can make that happen, make it happen. I kind of wish that because I think the odds of making that happen are not great. But that's why I kind of wish, and I don't mean I don't love Larry Johnson, but I think this would be a great time for him to retire when you're bringing in a new defensive coordinator and starting off fresh with a new defensive line coach. Even though you're making all these other hires, I just feel like you said, rip the Band-Aid off right now and do it now while you got these young, the guys are younger. And I feel like if you go into next year, as you say, without a clear plan of what's going to happen next, and you got Larry as it's essentially a lame duck year, you're not going to be able to get any recruits to get close to Ohio State because they have no idea what's coming after Larry.
Yeah, that's my fear. And we know that other schools have used that too. I mean, Marquise, he went to Miami. Yeah. They basically told him that Larry was going to retire. So yeah, that's out there. It's a concern. I just like that idea. I circled that last year too as an idea. And for me, and this just kind of reminds me of the CC Sabathia and some of these other cats, Mariano Rivera. They did their swan song. They went to all the ballparks. They signed. They had the good farewell tour. Let's, if Larry's going to leave and it's his decision to leave, let's make this his farewell tour. And then here's what we're doing after. But I don't want him to, I don't want it to linger. And he's done so much for the program that he deserves the right to make that decision. So, my opinion. So Justin Frye, man, I know. So there's been so much, on both sides here where like everybody was saying Justin Frye, not a great recruiter, or maybe didn't put the effort into recruiting. I'm starting to feel like, but great team guy, great individual, person to work with the guys that are in the program. Did a really great job of developing because, if you look at it, and I'm just thinking, I think you're going to have Josh Simmons, Donnie, and Seth all gone in the first 60 picks of the NFL draft. That's pretty darn good. So I know that there was some information that came out that he said, and you can fix this if I'm wrong, but basically he gets to see his family now and he didn't before. Is that the gist of it?
Yeah. And obviously, this is a guy who we knew all along was better suited for the NFL, and he kind of confirmed that that's what's most important to him. And who wouldn't when you got young kids, right? Like, I get it, but that's was kind of my thing all along. Was this guy is, in my opinion of him as a coach, the actual coaching part, which as we know, 50% of the job, according to his boss, not me, his boss,
right?
As a coach, I give every offensive line coach 3 full seasons before I say one way or the other whether I think they're a quality developer, good coach, what have you, because it takes a long time with an offensive line to put your mark on them. It takes several years, and that was never my issue. My issue with him was always recruiting, and it wasn't the lack of results. It was a lot of the strategy. It was the lack of offers. It was the lack of numbers he was bringing in. And it was from talking to recruits who I just flat out felt like they liked Ohio State and didn't feel like they were being prioritized. And it just felt to me like he never had the gusto for it. Like he could have been good at it, but he just didn't have the want to. Like you would hear from other guys talking, to the running backs coach and whatnot. Like Ohio State makes me feel like such a priority and things like that. And he's much better suited in the NFL, so I'm happy for him. And as far as Ohio State goes, yes, he did a great job. I feel like this is a very replaceable coach.
Yeah.
That's just my opinion on it.
No, I'm with you. I Thank you, Justin, for holding it down, and I appreciate your time here. Thanks for the natty. And I wanted to pick your brain about one thing. So Donovan Jackson kicks out to tackle. Donovan Jackson played better at tackle, in my opinion, than he ever did at guard. And for what it's worth, and guys, I didn't play Division I college football, but I know enough to watch what's happening, and it makes me wonder, looking at that, what you think the NFL will think of his versatility. Do you think I don't think he's an NFL tackle. I don't think he has the length, but what do you think? How are you feeling about? I mean, you can't not love Donovan Jackson. His mom's amazing. Like, they were a great part of the program. But NFL wise, I'm just curious. I know I didn't put this in the notes, but I was just kind of thinking about all the things under Justin Frye. So
Yeah, physically, number one, I just want to say, I consider Donovan Jackson to, outside of the quarterback position, this team right here. I don't think this national championship happens if Donovan Jackson's not on the roster. What he was able to do saved the national championship run. Can't do it without him. As far as what he did, it was amazing. It was amazing. It was selfless. And, come to find out, he didn't really want to do it. He told us that in that interview.
Yep.
But he sucked it up and did it anyway and went and made himself a whole lot more money. He played really, really good. There's no doubt. They also did a lot of sliding, did a lot of chipping to help him out, but he was fantastic. As far as, like you say, I think he's only about 6'4", really. I don't know what he's listed at, but he's about 6'4". He's a little more of a squattier build. Definitely going to be a guard in the NFL. But if you have that option in emergency to move him over, I think he's done nothing but help his draft stock. I think he is going to, I think you're right when you say the three of those are going to go in the top 60. But, when we were looking at this team coming off of last season, Donovan Jackson was a huge disappointment, and we were all very irritated and kind of calling him a bust as a 5-star. He really helped his draft stock, and he led this team to a national championship. One of the key pieces, one of the MVPs, and I hope he's the type of guy that's going to have a 10-year NFL career, and I can't wait to see it, really.
Yes, and maybe people don't remember, but my last memory of the 2023 season of Donovan Jackson is him sitting on his butt while Kyle McCord is getting hit while trying to throw that pass against Michigan over the middle to Marvin Harrison Jr. That was my last memory coming into this year. So huge credit to Donnie, to Justin Frye, and to put a neat little bow on it for the Justin Frye thing. I want somebody like Coach Locke that's hungry, that wants to get out there and recruit. I want somebody that's not afraid to recruit the DMV, Ohio, Indiana, Michigan. And then I don't want to steal your thunder because I know you said this, but you said, take your big swing. I think what you said at the Cantwell or whatever, but let's get the guys around here that, want to be Buckeyes. And can you help me understand the Jackson Cantwell hype? Because, man, Emmanuel Iancino, or however you want to say his name, that dude is just rugged. And to me, he's the better of the two. If you're looking at the David Sanders 5-star type guys, but I want the guy, from a coaching perspective, I want the hungry guy that's willing to go, to the south side of DC and try to get those guys to come play football here. And I don't have a name for you, but that's the kind of guy I'd like to have. How about you?
Yeah, I want a whole philosophical change. And what I mean by that is take your swing at your Emmanuel Iheanacho, who I agree with you is the better prospect than Jackson Cantwell. Jackson Cantwell, a really good athlete, got some really good film with much lesser competition. Iheanacho, bigger, stronger. I think he's going to be just a mammoth stud. And that's what I think about those two. But take your swing. Why not? You're Ohio State. You should be able to land one of those guys every 5 years, right? That's all I want. One of those big time dudes once every 5 years. And you should always be in the running for one of those top dudes. My issue was there are a whole lot of mid-range 4-star linemen in the Midwest and in the Northeast. And Notre Dame and Michigan have cleaned house on their offensive line, sticking right there. Ohio State has recruited some of them and then gone after all the rest of those mid 4-star guys to high 4-star guys down south. Have not had good success. Why not stick up here and just go after Michigan Notre Dame, Penn State, and beat the three of them instead of going down south to try to beat everybody else down there for the same quality prospect. I think that's the philosophical change that needs to happen when we look at these lines at Michigan and Notre Dame consistently pumping out stud after stud after stud. Notre Dame just lost three guys in the transfer portal, all started several games this year, and they won't miss a beat because they're so
No, they're bloated. They're
They got
loaded.
three excellent, huge tackles this year, all from Connecticut, Massachusetts, Indiana. Like they're all right here, Midwest, Northeast. Stick here and beat Notre Dame and beat Michigan. It seems so obvious to me, but yeah, that's what I'd love to see.
I have, I don't know if you've listened to Mark Porter very much, but he said something one time about these like stud left tackles in the South, and he calls them mama's boys. They just don't want to go very far from home, and they generally don't. David Sanders, going to Tennessee, I do believe we were in it right till the end, but I don't think we were ever going to be able to overcome the proximity to North Carolina for him and some of these other guys. And it's to say, and now Cantwell seems a little different. He seems like he may be up for grabs anywhere. But I agree with you, man. I love the idea of getting the homegrown. Now, obviously we get Paris Johnson a few years ago, but he's an Ohio kid. So like the Paris Johnson type, let's get one of those every few years and build from within, and I love it. So I'm glad you brought up Michigan. So I know we had other stuff in our notes, and I just want to ask you. So I put out a tweet that I never, like, again, and we were joking about this in our text thread, that like I never mean for these things to be this, like I'm just usually having fun. And I just I made a tweet that said, or post on X, and it said, not embroiled in a cheating scandal, just enjoying the natty. And it was just the confetti falling with the Ohio State. And man, I'll tell you what, people are just mean. People are just mean. I had one person tell me to eat a salad and called me a fat bitch. And like from Michigan, these Michigan people are just like, I actually turned the replies off because I was like, I think I sent it to you. It was like 77,000 views. I'm like, I didn't even put a hashtag on it. It was, so obviously they're looking for anything cheating related and just like blowing it up. But so, I'm starting to fade on the fact that I think the NCAA is really going to do anything. And it all stems from listening to, JD Pickell. He put something out there about it, but it was really Josh Pate. What's that?
JD Pickle sucks, bro. But anyway,
okay.
Go ahead.
Sorry. Yeah, it was Josh Pate that kind of started talking about the money and how like the money part of TV deals and how like it's so different now. And does the NCAA really have enough cojones to really do much of anything other than a fine and some scholarships and maybe take a few wins away here or there. But I know that Dan's the guy for this and he follows it really closely. I can't say that I've been following it super closely because I just don't think they're going to do that much. I think if anything, they're going to hammer CMU for having Stallions on their sidelines. But thoughts?
Yeah. For one, no, I'm not the one who follows this closely. And the reason I don't is because I find it boring as hell.
Yeah.
But because I knew it was going to take forever to get to the end resolution. And meanwhile, everybody else has been, following it nonstop throughout this. But really, what do we know? We've had two reports come out. I'll talk about it when the reports come out, or the leaks, right?
Yeah.
The leaks. But as far as just the overall scope of it, I've never really felt like they were going to get their comeuppance. Nothing that would make us happy.
Right.
That's kind of always been my feeling. But that's because there's just not a whole lot out there to do to a program anymore that's really going to kill them outside of a postseason ban. And I just don't know if that's going to happen. But there are some very big misconceptions. Number one, that a postseason ban doesn't keep them out of the playoffs, or that you can't take away their national championship because the college football playoff is a separate entity. We recognize records in playoffs by the NCAA rulebook. And if they don't acknowledge, their records don't acknowledge a national championship, then it doesn't go on their record. Just like when you look at Ohio State's wins against Michigan, type it in anywhere. The Arkansas year, but like that one's not in there.
No, it doesn't exist.
In their national championship count would not have that in it. So no, nobody was ever going to get the trophy and steal it back from them, but it's an unrecognized championship. That is from the NCAA. As far as a lot of people talking about the NCAA saying like every time they go to court, they get killed, they get destroyed. Every time they go to court, it's over something that has been ruled unconstitutional. And that has to do with player payment and that has to do with player mobility. They don't go to court and lose when it comes to enforcing their own rules about other things. We've got like 5 programs currently on probation right now. We just saw Michigan and Arizona State get hammered in the sense of the Arizona State got squashed for the COVID violation stuff for recruiting during that dead period. They did it way worse than Michigan. They got a really bad penalty. Michigan obviously got their penalties. The NCAA didn't lose in court to that. Kentucky just went on probation and got dinged for guys getting money, signing in for fake jobs and getting paid from a hospital. They didn't lose in court to that. Everything they lost in court is about things that have been ruled unconstitutional. And my point is, when everybody calls them a feckless organization that can't get anything done, like that's just not true. Only when it's those unconstitutional things. Yes, that's true. You can't do things that are unconstitutional. The things that are just their normal rules, yeah, they're getting enforced. The Michigan scandal falls under the normal rules. That's got nothing to do with player mobility or player payment. So that's just a fallacy right there. And they're certainly coming after him, and they certainly have all the Michigan keeps giving them all the reason in the world to try to come after him as hard as they can. To Pate's point about the TV networks and all the money involved, should you ding Michigan? You would think that there's probably some back channeling there, folks that are very influential that would, after all, these are just people running the NCAA. Very influential folks having conversations behind the scenes with them that would want to influence them not to go that route. And from that aspect, I can see his point. Ultimately, though, I can't wait to see how it turns out. I can't wait for it to be over, quite honestly.
Yeah, that's where I'm at the end of my rope with it. Yeah. I just do whatever you're going to do and be done with it so that I guess that's kind of where I'm at with it. I think the one thing that it took away from all of the that draft that came out from Michigan's reply back to the NCAA is basically them saying they're willing to fight. What exactly, if you didn't do anything wrong, what is there to fight? So I'm a little. And then I think the second, I guess it's probably 1A and 1B, is that, it wasn't Ryan Day's brother. It came from inside. And then the fact that everybody's like, oh, it was a lone wolf. Well, it sounded like multiple coaches were told that, there was this sign stealing organization within the Michigan clubhouse. So, kind of shoots that theory. But I thought those were the 2 more interesting points in there, if there was anything that interesting. But I didn't read all 137 pages.
Too. It was, so we know that it's not lone wolf. That got blown out of the water. Several coaches knew, including Mike Hart, Jesse Minter, and the linebackers coach. His name escapes me, but they all knew. So we know that. We also know that Sharon Moore is even more full of crap than we ever thought.
I was so mad.
He was just so mad at him. Didn't even want to see his name in his phone.
Forget it.
And we also know that, like you said, you're admitting, they admit straight up that Stallions did it, but they said he just did it this number of times, not this number of times. So I don't know, you're admitting the wrongdoing. Why don't you just go to the table and negotiate the penalty?
Yeah.
They're not negotiating the penalty because what the NCAA is proposing, probably a pretty big penalty. That's what that would make me think.
Yeah, same.
So,
yeah. And then the other part was the fairness and balance or whatever. Please, sir, please be nice. It's kind of how that came across. Yeah. All right. So I know you and I have the same opinion on this next topic, but I think we'll talk about it real briefly. So Ross Bjork again comes out with money figures, and it drove me crazy last year. You too. I know I watched your show enough to know that, saying the 20 million thing and and now he comes out and says, hey, we have a $38 million fiscal deficit for 2024. You and Dan and I and others all talked about the NIL and how we can control our contributions now, and money to the athletic department. How many different sports do we really need? And I'm not surprised And I guess I want to ask, are you surprised?
No, no, not at all. I mean, you got them outside of, I think, Stanford might have two more sports. I think Ohio State has more than anybody else. And when you look at a program, let's look at a program, I don't know, similar to Ohio State in football. Ohio State has like 36 varsity sports. Alabama has 18.
Right.
And it's all being funded from football. And then you add on to that all the, people like me or you who would have donated in the past to the athletic department, those all go to NIL now. So add that all together, and we always knew that something was going to have to give, and it was going to be some of these sports were going to need to go to club sports. Now, Ross Bjork seemed to hint at first like they were open for cutting sports, and then him and Ted Carter came out and said, maybe 6 months ago that their plan was not to. They're going to have to. I don't see any other way around it.
Yeah, I think if I remember right, football, basketball, and women's basketball. I think there's only 4 sports that actually operate in the black. I can't remember for sure, but I remember getting the information, and I know I got an email like from the athletic department asking me about my donation this year because I didn't want to pull it all and give it to NIL until I was sure kind of how everything was going to work out, because I had split between 50-50 between the foundation and 1820 or 1870 society, and then things kind of went weird with that, so then I moved everything over to the foundation. But now that I know what I know, I'm not sure what the next step is. But I care about the baseball program. I like to watch the Ohio State baseball team, but I don't know how much a difference what I would consider is left that I'm not giving to NIL would I'd rather maybe just give it all so that it goes to Caleb Downs and Jeremiah Smith. So I'm enjoying my national championship too much. But the dad in me, and maybe you'll get this too, like I went to a smaller school where we had partial scholarships to play, and I don't ever want to see a kid like that put their life into, I'll pick fencing just because I'm looking at my kid's play sword over there, but that's poured their heart and soul into this, be like, oh, I'm sorry, we aren't going to have a fencing program anymore, but you can go over there, and these parents and these kids that put all their heart and soul and time into this, and that's probably not a great example, but tennis would be another one. My son and daughter both love to play tennis in the winter because it's cold here. So in between basketball and baseball, I don't know. That's hard. That's hard for me as a parent to be like, sorry.
Yeah, I'm with you. It sucks. It's a bad deal, and for a long time that was a sense. I had a lot of pride in the fact that Ohio State led in that category. I really liked it, But when it comes down to brass tacks, when we talk about the football facilities, that needs, and we talk about all this stuff, and then you see all the money from football, which we all care about first and foremost by a mile, going to other places, and now you're running a deficit. I just don't see any way around it.
I agree.
It does suck.
Okay. Well, I don't want to leave the show on a sour note, so we are national champs, man. So I will ask you, if you had to pick a play, Tennessee, Oregon, Texas, Georgia, that's not the Scoop and Sawyer, I'll exclude that, that you felt like exemplified that playoff run, what would it be?
I'm going to go with at the Rose Bowl, because I went out to the Rose Bowl, my first ever Rose Bowl.
Yep, you were there.
JJ's first score on that little screen where he busted through that dude and hit the 20, threw up the deuces, and it was just it just felt like this is going to be a different game, and the whole Oregon side just kind of went hush, and of course it was a wildly different game, but it just was because that game, Chad, after the Tennessee game, everybody got really excited. Okay, now it's really on. Now we got Oregon, and that one, when we went into that, we were all very, very nervous as to what was going to happen this time. And being able to be totally relaxed by halftime, that the game was well in hand, that play kicked it all off. And to me, that play will always stand out. watching that just monster behemoth through behemoth down the field. That one's the one that stands out to me.
Okay. That's a great one. So this is going to sound contrary to what you just said, but it was when Riley Leonard scored on their opening drive. I watched him come off the field and I knew it was over.
Mm-hmm.
I knew in that moment that he was gassed. I knew in that moment that took every bit of everything Notre Dame had on offense, including 9 quarterback runs, to score against us. And I knew in that moment that I could put my foot up on the ottoman and cross my legs and sit back with my hands behind my head with my son, and we were going to be national champs. So that in that moment, I knew. Now, it seems a little different. Like yours was a celebratory moment. I was a little frustrated that he scored that easily, but I knew watching him come off the field and the way that he was gasping and limping and bleeding and
throwing up.
I knew in that moment that was it. That was it. They had nothing else. They had QB power.
I was on live and you should have seen the comments. There was freaking out. I'm like, guys, that's not sustainable. That's a good thing. He can't do that. Look at him. Look at him.
I'm not going to pick on Dano too much, but he was texting our thread during it like, this is not good. And I'm like, it is good though. It is. And I have, my rule. I don't tweet during games, man. I just don't. I don't really talk much during the games. I'll talk to my son and explain things to him or explain what the defenses or offenses are doing. But yeah, that was the moment I knew. That was the moment I was like, that's it, man. It's over. We're done. Pack it up. If we score, that's it. And then, of course, they went right down the field and just carved them up. So, yeah. All right, brother. Well, thank you again. I appreciate you jumping on.
One thing before we split city.
Let's do it.
Anybody still watching at 44 minutes is obviously, who I would consider a friend of you and ours, right?
Yes.
These are the folks who kick it with us every day. If they're still here at 44 minutes, these are people who enjoy us. And I want to say to them, things are in transition right now with the program. If ever there was a time in the past decade that we can just have a smile on our face and not worry about a thing for a month, now's the time, guys. Now's the time. No need to stress about any of this. The program's in good hands. The most important piece, the head coach and the talent and the culture, we've got all of that. This is all going to work out just fine.
For sure. I always say I'm reveling in it. Like I'm still smiling. Yeah. Yesterday I went to my safe and I have the 24 national championship ring in there and I got it out and I put it on. I was going to, and I put it back, but yeah, I'm reveling in it. I'm enjoying it. It was 10 years. It was 10 years between them. And it just seemed like, it didn't seem like that long, but it really was that long. And so, yeah, I'm just, like we have a lot of talent. We have a good team. The head coach is still here. It's all going to be okay. And just breathe. Just breathe, like the song says. Juck, I appreciate you, man. Appreciate you coming on. It's always good to rap with you and just kind of talk through this stuff. And maybe it gives people a different voice than just mine and something to talk about. So thank you. I know we said 30 minutes. We never keep it to 30 minutes, but we're going to be under an hour. So that's something. But I appreciate you, man. Appreciate you so much. Juck on Bucks on YouTube, Menace to Sports, and the hottest thing in Ohio State football podcasting in the last year, and the fastest growing is Juck on Bucks. So thanks, buddy. Appreciate you.
Thank you, Chad. Appreciate you, buddy.
Yeah, you guys have a good week. You stay safe out there, and as always, go Bucks.